Hello, and welcome to the Google News Initiative's Asia Pacific Youth Verification Challenge for 2022. We're so pleased to have you with us tonight. My name is Holly Knott, and I'm here on behalf of Australian Associated Press. It's Australia's independent and objective newswire, but we're also your hosts for all the events related to the Australia-New Zealand chapter of this challenge. Before we get started tonight, I would like to pay my respects to the Wadi Wadi people of the Darawal Nation, which is where I live and work, and to extend my respects to the traditional custodians of all the lands represented on this call tonight. I also thank the elders past, present and emerging, and extend my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are on this call tonight. Thank you for joining us. Tonight I'm here to introduce my colleague and friend Ben James, who is the first of 4 professional fact checkers who we have arranged to share their experiences and skills with you throughout the month of August. Ben is a British-born journalist, editor and author with more than a decade of experience working at news organisations both here in Australia and in the UK. And before joining AAP, he'd worked as a news editor at News Corp Australia and for various titles. Ben's previously worked in the UK in newspapers including the Argus in Brighton, the Sheffield Star and various others, and he brings a wealth of experience to his role as AAP Fact Check Editor. So without further ado, can I please introduce you to Ben James and let him take over and share with you some of the insights from the world of professional fact checking. Thanks, Ben.
Hello, everybody. Thanks very much. Thanks for that, Holly. That was a great introduction. And yeah, it'd be great to have a bit of a chat with you today and talk to you all about the world of fact checking. So yeah, my name's Ben James. As Holly said, I'm the editor of AAP Fact Check. You'll see in a second my Twitter handle is there and our homepage for anyone who is interested. And hopefully today I can give you a taste of what being a fact checker is all about. And I'll talk you through a couple of our checks, which have relied heavily on online verification skills. But first off, a bit of a kind of potted history of AAP and AAP Fact Check. So Australian Associated Press, or AAP, as it's perhaps better known, was founded back in 1935. It continues to occupy a very important place in the country's media landscape as Australia's only independent national newswire. In comparison, AAP Fact Check is relatively new, launching in 2019, initially to cover that May's federal election. We're primarily based in Sydney, operating out of our lovely Paddington office, but we have staff in most of the capital cities, as well as a strong contingent in New Zealand as well. And while we started out covering the 2019 election, we do so much more than that now, tackling claims across social media, in the traditional media, and covering a wide range of topics, which we'll go into shortly. So what exactly do we cover? Well, what do? We are a third-party fact-checking partner with Meta, the parent company of Facebook. Meta has had a fact-checking program in place for a number of years now in a bid to clean up disinformation across its platforms. We're part of that, so we tackle claims made in videos, posts, memes, across Facebook and Instagram. We're also one of TikTok's registered fact check partners. This program has not been going as long, but it's obviously a very exciting space to be in, given the popularity of that platform. We've also had partnerships with various other third parties, including Google, most recently for this year's federal election, which kept us very busy. And we also worked with Google on the last New Zealand election, which again kept us very busy. We've had multiple partnerships with others, such as the Australian Conservation Foundation, in a bid to combat one of the big themes in the misinformation space at the moment, which is the environment and climate change. But our bread and butter really is politics, and in particular federal politics. Given AAP's reputation for covering the national political debate, that's a very important space for us, and one that we spend a lot of time on. Okay, so I'll try and give you a bit of a taste of a day in the life of a fact check journalist. First off, a lot of it is monitoring. There's a lot of misinformation out there, that's for sure. But those who willfully spread misinformation, especially those online, they know we're onto them. It almost ends up as a bit of a kind of cat and mouse. so there's a bit of effort in actually unearthing that misinformation to start with. Political misinformation is a bit easier to spot for obvious reasons, and we use a number of tools for monitoring. Facebook, in particular, has developed its own misinformation tool, which is very much kind of front and center of our efforts. The Facebook algorithm basically curates a list of posts it reckons could be worthy of us checking out, and the hit rate is surprisingly quite good on that. We also use CrowdTangle a lot, which I'm sure you've all heard of. Twitter and TweetDeck as well. TweetDeck particularly useful for getting all your kind of political heavyweights together in one easy to track feed. But it isn't all new technology. You can't beat listening to the radio, TV, and being across all the papers. Certainly, most of our political checks come from the likes of RM Breakfast, Q&A, Sky News. So you really do need to be across all of it, really. So that's the start of our day. You log on, you see what's out there, and then as a team, we go together into a bit of a kind of all-in conference. This is where we discuss the ideas we come across. We pitch ideas and we pick holes in each other's ideas and decide on viable checks. This process can be quite brutal at times, but picking holes in each other's ideas is vital. You want to iron out any potential problems before you spend hours, days, even weeks researching checks. Once everyone knows what they're doing, then it's onto the research. This is finding and pulling apart primary sources, delving into data sets, online verification, which we're going to shortly, and speaking to experts in the field. It's a big part of the job, the research. So you really gotta love it, and you really gotta love research to be a fact checker. Once you think you've got sufficient evidence together, you then move on to writing the check. There is a bit of a distinct style for fact checks, which for me, coming from a news background, took a bit of getting used to, but you soon get there. There's certainly some similarities there with news writing. For me, an extra part of the process is editing other people's copy. There are obviously some meaty topics when it comes to fact check, from a lot of figures and science and medical information. So you need to ensure you're getting that across. You need to make sure you're getting across these complex ideas and arguments in a digestible way. Otherwise, it's pointless, really, because people aren't taking it in and digesting it. And then finally, journalism is no longer a case of just filing a story and expecting it to get to your audience like it maybe once was. There's so much competition out there. People are busy and only have so much time in the day. So you really need to sell it now. You need to tell people why they need to read your check. Most of that distribution is through social media, but we've also done spots on radio. We've commissioned translators even to translate our checks into Chinese, Arabic, and Vietnamese, so we can get them out and across to those difficult to reach communities. So what kind of things are we checking? Perhaps the dominant theme from the last couple of years, as you may guess, has been COVID, and more recently vaccines. Be it misinterpreting adverse effects data, nanotechnology in vaccines, impotence, the supposed danger of masks. You name it, we've checked it, and we continue to check it. We've just been working on some COVID checks today. However, we have noticed a bit of a move away from COVID in recent months. It's been replaced at number one by the environment and climate checks. And this, again, the scope is huge. This can be anything from flat out climate change denial to attempts to downplay Australia's emissions, to Bob Catter arguing that algae can make coal-fired power stations emissions free. That's something we checked during the election, and you'll not be surprised to know that was false. Next up, as opposed to COVID, we have our kind of general health claims. These generally tend to be from wacky doctors spruiking miracle cures, treatments, and supplements. Some of it kind of is quite funny, but potentially very dangerous. You have people who are supposedly appear to be in positions of power, recommending potentially very dangerous supplements and issuing dangerous advice. Then we have our general conspiracy theories. This is a bit of a roundup of the best of the rest from across social. The general theme here tends to be one of global organizations supposedly wanting to control and subdue people. So the subjects to these claims are often the likes of the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization. Bill Gates, often kind of portrayed as some kind of Bond supervillain, often cops a lot of flack as well. Then, of course, we have politics. Again, the scope here is massive. Everything from, politicians overstating political records to broken promises to unfair comparisons, taking undue credit and issuing undue blame to others. Sometimes it's just straight out lies. So that keeps us very busy. So let's take a look at an example of a fact check we did using online verification skills. This video we're going to watch started doing the rounds during the height of Sydney's lockdown. If you can remember, there's a real kind of East versus West thing going on. Western Sydney was copying most of the cases. There was even the police and the army were brought in to enforce the rules. Meanwhile, there was certainly the perception that the East, and in particular young people, were carrying on as usual, heading to the beach, having house parties. This video in particular really started to go off. As you'll see, it depicts a large gathering of young people dancing to music with a live band. The banner above it states, "Bondi Beach today." As you can imagine, the comments were full of hate and vitriol. And from a first look, it certainly looks as if it could be Bondi. But yeah, you see it then. So I don't know if you saw any clues, but yeah, let's have a look what we come up with. So on first inspection, the video isn't really giving us a great deal. There's no major landmarks, no road signs that we could make out, or anything really that really placed it. Here's what we took from it. So you can see there's a large grassy area. Could be a beachfront promenade, perhaps a park, could well be Bondi, but nothing really distinctive to give that location away. So what else have we got? Well, if you look a bit closer, you can make out two phone boxes just behind that big speaker there. Now, phone boxes are not as common as they once were, so this could be a helpful pointer. If you run the video on a bit, you'll then see a distinctive looking white building in the background. It's, I'm no expert on architecture. It's hardly the Opera House. It's not that recognizable, but it's another piece of the jigsaw. But now for perhaps our best clue so far, when we run it on a little bit further, you'll see what looks like a chemist's warehouse. It's blurry and it's in the distance, but you can make out the garish yellow branding, which we all know and love or hate. It's certainly very recognizable. And then our real breakthrough came from the comments. Third one down, simply read, "That's Byron, I reckon." This was the first suggestion, that we'd come across that this isn't in fact Bondi. It's always worth reading the comments. Sometimes users can do half the fact check for you without even knowing. So it's always a good place to start. So now we've got something to go on. We know there's a chemist's warehouse, and there was a suggestion of it being in Byron Bay. So a quick Google of chemist's warehouse and Byron Bay, and we got this address. 51 Johnston Street, Byron Bay. So next it's on to a fact checker's best friend, which is Google Street View. As you can see here, it certainly looks like it could be our chemist's warehouse. You can make out the distinct shape of the roof. It looks like there's cars parked at that same angle out the front. And then to the right looks like what could be the same blue of an ANZ bank. Still not quite enough to go on, but it's a start. So next we spin Street View around. This should show us where the music and dancing was happening. There's a bit of building work going on in when this Street View was taken, but it looks like it could be our grassy area. But perhaps more importantly, if you look closely, you can see there what appears to be our two phone boxes. I've zoomed in here so you can see it a little bit more clearly, but yeah, there's the distinct kind of top to them for sure. So we're certainly getting a bit more confident now. So let's spin Street View once more and see if we can find that building that we noticed in the clip. There we go. That looks like our distinctive white building. Not only that, but the tree in front looks incredibly similar. You can make the branches out. They're about the same thickness and going in the same directions. And not only that, the building to the right appears to be another match, which we didn't really clock in the initial video. Very distinctive building. You can see those thin struts, which just cements it for us, really. We know we're onto a winner here. So that's pretty compelling evidence, and completely changes the context of the video. This was a time when COVID was largely contained to Sydney. That seems a long time ago, but there was a time. There was no COVID in Byron, and there was certainly no restrictions up there. So even if this video was contemporaneous, there was nothing untoward going on, and it certainly wasn't Bondi. So that was a classic use of online verification to debunk that piece of misinformation, which was spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. So on to our first question. Nice easy one, this from one of our early slides. Which leading businessman and philanthropist is the source of a number of general conspiracy theories we come across? Stick your answers in the chat if you think you know, and we'll see what you come up with. Oh, okay, we already have a winner. That was incredibly quick. Whoever came up with that. I don't know if we're announcing that now or we'll saving it to later. I think perhaps. I'll move us on to our second scenario anyway. Now, this is one we came across a while back when policy around electrical vehicles was a major discussion point. This meme is doing the rounds in a number of the climate-related groups we keep an eye on, and the suggestion being that this monstrosity is a lithium mine, lithium being used as the key component in EV batteries, electrical vehicle batteries. Now, I don't know the difference from one mine to the next. To me, this could well be a lithium mine. So we decided to have a little look into it. It was actually a fairly straightforward one, but I wanted to show you as it demonstrates how we can use reverse image search effectively. There are a number of different reverse image search programs that offer different functions. For this one, we use TinEye, which you may or may not have come across. One of the great advantages with TinEye is that it dates when the image first appeared. So this is particularly useful when helping debunk images which people say happened at a certain time. In particular, it's been very useful for fact checkers looking into the Ukraine war. I know fact checkers have debunked images posted by Russian disinformation teams purporting to show war crimes and things like that. Once you've done a reverse image search, the images are being found to date back to the Kosovo war, even before. In this particular case, the date isn't actually that important, but the result was very good. As you can see there, 144 results found, most of which were identical matches. Before long, we were finding multiple articles from reputable outlets such as Forbes and the like, clearly stating that this meme's image is indeed the Escondida mine, which is the world's largest copper mine in Chile. Absolutely nothing to do with lithium and EVs, but just a case of someone, using this striking image to fit their narrative and their agenda. Again, one which we managed to shut down with relative ease just by using reverse image search. But reverse image search doesn't always come up with the goods. So there are other ways to crack this, which we'll take a look at now. As with the Byron video, the first port of call is often the comments. In this one, among the kind of general scorn was a comment which read, "It's Escondida." Now that wouldn't really mean much to you at this point. It's a start, but unless you're into your mines of South America, it probably doesn't mean a great deal. But a quick Google brings up results for the Escondida mine in northern Chile, the largest copper mine in the world, as we know, nothing to do with lithium. This is suggesting that we're onto something. But if our reverse image search hasn't brought anything up, we could then turn to Google Maps. So Escondida mine in Google Maps brings up this. So this certainly looks like it could be our mine. There are those distinct layer markings on the rock, and it's certainly the same kind of colors that we're seeing in our meme. Luckily for us, someone has done a Google Street View image as well, allowing us to take a closer look So this different angle seems to confirm the scale, and you can also see those distinct kind of tiers in the rock again. This is all starting to build the picture for us. Somebody's helpfully done a street view drone shot for us as well, which gives us another perspective. This appears to show the same tracks and mounds as you can see here beyond the upper edge of the mine. It seems to match with our meme. And another drone shot which gives us another clue. You can see here these buildings with the blue kind of turquoise tinge. They appear to be the same as in our meme as well. So just by a quick look on Google Maps and Google Street Views, which you all have and use every day, I'm sure we can be pretty confident by performing this simple analysis that we have the right location. I think it's important to remember these are all things you're incredibly capable of doing. You've grown up with this technology, you've grown up with these applications. That's where you really have an advantage over perhaps some of the more experienced older fact checkers and journalists. This stuff is secondhand to you. So you just need to be switched on, question everything, and be curious, really, and you're halfway there. Okay, on to the second question. Again, probably a bit too easy, but we'll see how you go. The Escondida mine, as we've just looked at, in which country would you find it? Pop your answers in the chat. I think we may have some entries. Cool. Okay, well that's all from me. I'll pass you back, and I believe it's time for any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Ben. That was amazing. Even though you and I are colleagues and we work alongside each other quite closely, I find it fascinating to see you unpack so methodically the processes that sit behind some of the fact-checking work that you do. So thank you for sharing that information with us tonight. And as the title of this slide says, it's question time. So Ben's agreed to stick around and take a few questions from the floor, and I would encourage you all to pop your questions in the chat for Ben. But I'm going to get the ball rolling tonight with a question that's been provided. It's around the funding for AAP, Ben. It's not specifically a fact-checking question, and it's I'm not sure who it's from. I'm sorry, but I will say the question reads, "Hi Ben, love the AAP and have been following the useful fact checks for a couple of years. I'm fairly sure AAP is not government owned. That's correct. We are 100% independent." And the question goes on to frame, but you have received some federal funding in 2021, also correct. In the last federal budget, there was some funds set aside for AAP. If it's not publicly owned, the question continues, what does it mean to say that it is independent? Does that mean it's free of bias because it's non-profit?
I guess what I'd say on that, on the funding issue, it's not something we even. Oh, can you hear me? Is my camera on?
Can hear you, and now we can see you. That's great.
I'm not sure what happened there. In terms of the funding, it's not something we even think about when we're doing our checks. It's you have to go into this being as fiercely independent as possible. You're in the wrong game if you're going into this with any bias. I think you've just got to have a general curiosity and willingness to find the truth in whatever you're doing. Otherwise, you're in the wrong job, and you should be doing something else, really. I'm not sure that gets it across or not.
Yeah, I think that's very fundamental. The fact that we're just following the facts, or that you're just following the facts wherever they might lead, and you're not beholden to any particular organization that might be a funder or any particular client base or customer. You really are just going where the information leads you. So I think that illustrates what underpins our independence and our lack of bias. We don't have any masters to serve in particular. So I'm just building on your answer, Ben.
No, it's great.
Giving you my own 2 cents worth for what it's worth.
And I think what's great from my time at AP, you certainly get no directions from above. You get no one telling you what to do or what you can write and what you can't write. It's great. If you do have bias and want to get into journalism where you're
the game for you
or hand advice, there's plenty of organizations in Australia to work for, but yeah, AP's not the one.
Okay. So yeah, Chriso says, thanks, that answers the question. So appreciate you throwing the question at us or at Ben tonight. Thank you very much. So another question for you, Ben, tonight, if you don't mind taking another one, is that, there are a lot of people who call themselves experts. How do you decide on what experts you can rely on? Even within academic institutions, sometimes there's contention about who really is the authoritative voice. So how do you cut through all that as a professional fact checker?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question and something we do kind of grapple with. For us, it's all about doing our due diligence, basically. I'd also just add that people who present themselves as experts and call themselves experts often aren't experts. But we go through a bit of a process. First off, we narrow down what the claim is, what we're looking into. And then we search for an expert in that very kind of specific field. So if someone's making a claim about electoral discrepancies, and we find Australia's preeminent electoral law academic, if someone's making a claim about vaccine-related heart issues, we'll speak to cardiologists. It sounds simple, but it is really. You just have to really kind of hone in and make sure you're getting the right person. Once you've found your expert, you should have a bit of a search around as well. See if they've attracted any controversy, see if they've got a background. For example, there's an expert, an environmental expert we had used in the past. He's seen the real deal, had plenty of publications and letters after his name, but a quick Google search showed that he'd been in a high court battle with his former university over remarks about the environment which were contentious. So just doing your due diligence and your background checks, I guess. Check people's records, check their associations. Try not to pick anyone who seems to be associated with campaign groups and action groups. In a way, you kind of want the most boring, straight down the line experts as possible, really. But for every check, we also contact a minimum of 2 experts. That's our standard. And if ever I have concerns about one expert's comments or the subject matter, then I'll just get the journalists to contact half a dozen experts. Red flags will soon start to appear once you start speaking to numerous experts. But if there's a general consensus among them, then you're generally on the right track.
Oh, that's great. So there's a few checks and balances in the processes there, I can see. But I've got one eye on the clock here and we've run slightly over time. So I think that means it's time for me to thank you so much, Ben, for giving so generously of your insights and your time this evening. And thank you to everyone on the call for joining us tonight. And I would encourage you all to join us at the same time next Tuesday, where we will have the next in our series with professional fact checkers. And you'll have another opportunity to ask questions and to hear from some of the best in the business. So until then, thank you very much. Stay safe and we'll see you in a week's time, I hope. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks.